Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to 786 Boulevard, where we are parked at the intersection of art, culture and spirituality. This is episode 30, founding the first Muslim American casting agency with actress Serena Rasoul.
It's the good Muslim versus the bad Muslim, right? Or they try to just paint, a completely positive picture of a Muslim. The reality is we're human. We're not completely bad or completely good. We just have flaws. We have vices. We do things that we shouldn't do. We're involved in situations we shouldn't be involved in sometimes. And that's the beauty of the way God made us. God made us flawed.
Serena Rasoul started her acting career in 2013 by appearing on the award-winning House of Cards. She founded Muslim American Casting to highlight incredible Muslim talent and to consult industry professionals on how to best include Muslims in the creative process. We'll be discussing her journey as an actress, what sparked her inspiration into founding Muslim American Casting, changing the tide of Muslim representation in the industry, and more. Hope you enjoy the conversation and welcome back to 786 Boulevard. Serena, assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Alaikum salam. Good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for meeting with us. Appreciate you taking from your busy schedule and talking to us about this fantastic initiative that you started. Can't wait to dive right into it, inshallah. How's your Ramadan going?
It's going, alhamdulillah. Hanging in there.
Okay.
How about you guys?
I've been having a very weird Ramadan because I've been traveling, so I haven't been fasting. So I've been eating and drinking everywhere and making the people that I stay with feel very uncomfortable because I'm eating and drinking during the day. But hopefully, Hasnain, how's your Ramadan going?
It was good until you came. Now it's not so great, but alhamdulillah, it's good.
It's good. I guess just to start off, before we get into this wonderful initiative that you kind of put together, which I think is really fantastic work. What's amazing is that you're already in the industry as an actress, and I think that I hope this is not a horrible thing to say, but I think that we can all kind of accept that within immigrant communities, we're not really pushed to go into the arts, particularly into acting and the film industry. So in terms of your journey toward acting and becoming an actress, when did it first spark in you that you wanted to act in film or TV?
Okay, so I told you backstage that I grew up in Southwest Virginia, and the only Muslims around, the only brown people around, they weren't around. It was 4 hours before we could get to any other Muslims in Northern Virginia. So we were really surrounded by one particular demographic of people. And I think that feeling of just not really belonging or not really fitting in, you kind of, as a child, you come up with your own coping mechanism. So my coping mechanism was to make these people laugh. It was just at all, there at any way I could make them laugh, I was going to make them laugh because I felt like that was my way of disarming them, right? So that they could accept me and they could accept my family and they could accept the nonsense, the craziness that came with my family. So I would do these impressions, and I would go to school and I would impersonate my parents with their thick, Arabic accents, and then I would come home and I would impersonate my teachers with their thick Southern accents, right? And I would tell my parents you'll never believe what Peggy Sue said to me today. She told me that I need to come home with I need to come bring her some hummus and some cookies, and and they got it. My parents got a kick out of it, and then my friends, they got a kick out of just hearing this accent they've never heard before. If you can imagine, only ever seeing yourself, the people that you go to school with are only yourself. It's just so weird because they've never seen anything like it. So, I just became a natural entertainer, and it just kind of grew from there. And, my parents, of course, they were not keen on me doing that outside of the house. It was funny inside the house, but when I was visiting uncles and aunties, it was like, shut your mouth, sit quietly, and don't ask for food because you're not getting any. You know? So it just kind of, it took a while for them to kind of get used to the idea. And honestly, like, I went to college and I got the degrees and I did everything that I was supposed to do. But on the side, I wasn't telling them that I was continuing to take drama courses, and I was continuing to pursue this on the side. And honestly, it wasn't until now in my adulthood that I've been able to actually, it was 2 years ago where I actually showed my parents my first stand-up show. And they, I was terrified, I was petrified. And to my shock, my dad looked at me and he goes, "That's really good." And I was like, "What? Really? Like, I've been terrified to show you this, like, all of these years, and he loved it." I was just shocked. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess, what was, I guess, I mean, we've all kind of faced it in different ways, but what was the fear, if I can call it that you had of keeping your parents and your family in the loop as you're pursuing acting, as you're pursuing comedy? Like, what stopped you from, just including them in that journey of yours?
It's always about the community. Like, what are they gonna say? And I know, like, in Arabic, we have a phrase for it, and I think, different communities have different phrases for it, but it's always about what the community is going to think and how it's going to impact you later in life. And, for us, it's never about how this is going to impact you now, it's how it's going to impact your children, right? It's like, if you do this now, your kids are going to be known as the mom, the one who has the mom that does this thing, right? And that's going to impact their ability to get married later in life, right? It's always like a generation.
I've heard that before.
It's like, screw you. Nobody cares about you now. It's like your kids and their marriage potential later. So yeah, I mean, it was difficult, but I've realized and I've learned that, unfortunately, it's when you actually get to the point of success and you're actually doing something that they can be proud of, that's when they actually become okay with it, like somewhat okay with it. When I was first on House of Cards, they were like, what? They were kind of shocked by it. And then all of a sudden people were calling them up, and they were like, okay, all right, she's doing this. Like, we're going to accept this. And actually, the thing that my mom was the most proud of, I was in a Giant commercial, which is a grocery store. And I pan on the screen and you can barely see me, but everybody in this area goes shopping at Giant, right? So everybody saw this commercial and called my mom, and they were like so ecstatic about seeing me in a Giant commercial, and I never thought that would be the thing that she would be proud of. But grocery stores, the way to win your parents' heart, I guess.
100%. Yeah, that's how it is. I think when it comes to many immigrant parents, it's like when you tell them, for example, I want to be an actor, I want to get into art, they can't, I guess, it's hard to, until they see something tangible, until they see it in practice and see that you can be successful in it, they kind of, I guess from a sense of protectiveness, they're a bit kind of, I don't want to speak to your parents, but generally from what I've seen in various communities, they're a bit reluctant because they don't know what it looks like. They don't know, can you actually sustain yourself? Are you going to waste your life away if you don't go into accounting or becoming a doctor or whatever? But that's really fantastic. And in terms of, like, I guess, being, you're originally Palestinian, right? If I'm not mistaken. So being a Palestinian-American in the industry, did you face any challenges from that kind of angle? Because you mentioned that you grew up in a place where you're the only Muslims within a 4-hour radius. In the industry itself, as we know, as we'll get into your initiative, Muslims are scarce, they're barely around, right? So being a Palestinian American, being a Muslim in the industry, did you ever face any challenges, or was it just like non-existent?
Of course. I mean, so here's the thing. there's certain roles that I will not take, right? And it's not that I judge anyone that does take those roles. It's just not my comfort level. It's not what I am comfortable doing. And there are Muslims that take different roles and practice differently, and, more power to them. It's just where I find my comfort level limits my capacity, limits my growth, my potential. And so there's only so much room, I think, for Muslim women, especially, I think, in this space. And I can get into that in a minute, but when it comes to taking roles where you are expected to be intimate or take off your clothes or be, drinking or whatever the scene may take, that's just not something that I'm very comfortable with. So that's going to limit my ability to be in like a series, right, where the writers have creative potential to just take your character into different scenarios. So a lot of my work is I've done some mainstream stuff, but I end up doing a lot of industrial work. I do a lot of commercials. I do training videos. I do a lot of stuff on the back end that doesn't necessarily make it to the mainstream, but is helpful in its own right. And then, of course, there's the stereotyping that continues to perpetuate. So I read your article in the Muslim Vibe, and it just resonated so much because Hollywood is attempting to like open up a little bit and kind of take the stereotypes, and they're trying to counter them. But what ends up happening is they fall into another trap, another stereotype trap, where it's the good Muslim versus the bad Muslim, right? Or they try to just paint, a completely positive picture of a Muslim. And the reality is we're human. We're not completely bad or completely good. We just have flaws. We have vices. We do things that we shouldn't do. We're involved in situations we shouldn't be involved in sometimes. And that's the beauty of the way God made us. God made us flawed, right? And so if you want a truly authentic depiction and representation, you're going to have a little bit of both, right? But with regards to your question, there's just so many limitations to what I can and can't take and what I feel comfortable taking. And then I've been put in scenarios where, and I share this story all the time, but I think it's a little bit more tangible for people to understand. I was in a show for a network, and they asked me to wear hijab for this particular scene. And so I got to set, and it was a very benign scene. It was a prayer breakfast. It was very benign. Wasn't, terrorist XYZ. I get to set, and there were two other women who were also supposed to be wearing hijab. And I asked wardrobe, or I went to wardrobe, and they didn't have hijabs for us. There were no headscarves. So I ran to my car, and I pulled out what I had. And I came back to set, and I asked wardrobe, I said, okay, where are these women supposed to be from? Because hijab can be worn differently depending on where you're from, right? If you are from Turkey or the Gulf or from Kenya or from wherever you're from, your scarf can sometimes be worn differently. And the response was, and I kid you not, the response was, we don't know, just make them look Muslim. And I'm the actor, right? Like, I'm not wardrobe. So I took what I had, and I sat the girls down, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to make you look Turkish, or I was just kind of winging it. And, we went to set and we filmed, and it was fine. But I use that story as an example because, for Hollywood right now, I think we're just a box to check, right? Yeah. And it's just like, let's just throw some hijabis in the back, and then that's our diversity. Like, we did it. And that's the challenge I face right now is, great. I'm so happy that they're even thinking about us, but, let's really start to take that and make it more nuanced.
Before we continue, just a quick reminder to subscribe to us on all platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and on YouTube. If you're enjoying this episode, please share it with your friends and family, share it on social media, give us a tag, and we will repost it for you. Thanks for spending time with us here at 786 Boulevard. You know what's interesting? I know your question, but I actually want to ask you a question as well because you're an actor, and
Yeah, I'd love to hear from
you. You're going through struggles as well. And one thing, Serena, you mentioned, which was very interesting, was that you refuse to do scenes of intimacy, scenes of nudity. And I think one thing we kind of like to, especially us who love film and adore entertainment, one thing we like to, I guess, in our minds kind of brush over is the fact that this is an industry that has so much depictions of sex and nudity. Like it or not, every actor or actress throughout their career has some sort of scene where they're nude or intimate on screen or whatever. And I feel like as Muslims, of course, each to their own. Many Muslims who work in Hollywood, some of them don't do intimate scenes, some do, and that's each to their own, right? But in terms of for you, for example, and for Hasnain, how do you overcome that? Is it like an actual hurdle that you have to face when you're breaking into the industry? You have to be like, for example, whenever you get a job, you have it in your clause or however it works, I don't do nudity scenes, which some actors and actresses do have. Yeah. But when you're coming up, from what I understand, that's a very difficult position to be in. Yeah.
Would you like to go first?
No, please. Go ahead.
I think when it comes to me, I don't have a clause when I book a role. One thing I learned through my acting coach and my way is always take your time. You don't need to always say yes right away. Read the script, tell them to give you like whatever you're doing, and talk with them, because from my training, whenever you're in a room with a casting agent or a director or a writer, half the time they don't even know what they're looking for. So they're looking at the actor who's playing a role for them to get ideas. So for example, remember how I was telling you how I'm going to be shooting this weekend, and I went in for a specific role, and they changed the whole short film to have me play a different role, right?
Because legend right here.
But that's what happens, right? So you basically work on your craft and be good enough for them to rethink, like, okay, this is a little different. In regards to hurdles like intimacy or kissing scenes and stuff like that, I'll be completely honest. When I first started my career, I was so hungry for it that I didn't really have those boundaries that I have today. I'm just going to completely say it. But as I progressed and I realized, okay, why am I always constantly getting comedy roles? Or why am I constantly only getting these specific like best friend nerd role? How do I take it to the next level? I started realizing it's because I never set a boundary for myself. And so, as I progressed with my acting coach and started working on my own productions, started doing my own thing while continuously auditioning, while working my full-time job, while doing this podcast, I realized...
Mashallah.
Yeah, thank you. I realized that if I have those boundaries, when I walk into any room, they kind of already sense that. They kind of already get it.
That's what you're saying, yeah.
Because you kind of command the room.
You set your value.
Yeah. And the good thing about doing your own work is that you get to push the initiative of, hey, okay, there's a brown guy playing a New Yorker, but he's just like any other New Yorker, taking the subway, getting his, not bacon, egg, and cheese, but egg and cheese, and their coffee. So, it's just like, how do we, normalize a person of color who's a New Yorker, because a New Yorker could literally be anybody, right? So that's kind of how I went about it. But now I have those boundaries.
And for you, Serena, is it a hurdle for you? like generally refusing to do those kind of scenes? Is it something that will impede your career going forward?
Yeah, 100%. So I've gotten, so just an example. Last week I was sent, my agent sent me 2 auditions, for, and I'm not trying to like tout or anything, but they were for some really great shows, network shows. And one of them did have an intimate, there was like a kissing scene. And then there was another, the other scene or the other show was just something that I personally don't want to be a part of because it kind of perpetuates the negative view of Muslims, a show that's on right now. And so I turned them both down. And these would have been like game changers for me, like to have actually auditioned and gotten. Now there's no saying I would have gotten them, but I don't even audition for them. And honestly, I should, just to get the experience. But I just know that I just won't feel comfortable. And again, I have so much respect for, so many actors. So that's just my comfort level. Everyone's comfort level is completely 100%. Different. So
let me just ask you this, because I think I already got the answer, but I just want to make sure. So like, you know how in certain kissing scenes they can cheat the camera, so you're actually not really kissing. Even that is kind of that borderline for you, right? Like you wouldn't do that either.
I mean, if they brought like a stand-in I'd be down for it. But but yeah, like I just
The reason why I ask you that is because I'm struggling with that myself too. Like I've been given opportunities like, oh, we're not actually going to do it. We're just going to cheat the camera. We're going to make it look like you're doing it. But even inside, like, my morals is like, yeah, but this is not, like, I don't want to be seen behind the film. Ooh, Hasnain, look at what he's doing. Like, I don't know. That's why I kind of threw it out there. I just don't know. So I'm struggling with that.
You know what's interesting? Sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say, I think so. Mahershala. Of course.
I was just gonna bring that up.
He's way up there, so he can do this now. But I heard recently, actually, last month, that Mahershala has a writer in his contracts now that he's no longer going to do any intimate scenes, or implicit or implied or nudity, and I think that that's significant. Not that we can do that, but to have someone on that level make that a priority for themselves, it sets a standard, and it pushes the goalpost, right, a little bit. And so again, I think for women it's much harder. But I mean, I think if Mahershala can make people comfortable with that writer, then I think maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
So it's funny you mention that, because I want to mirror that point. So Mahershala, I don't know if it's a new right or old, but I was watching True Detective season 3, which he was the main actor for, and again there was like a sex scene in it, but it was implied. It wasn't shown, and it was so interesting because in any other show with any other actor, that would have 100% been a full-on nudity scene, but they implied it as opposed to show it. And I think what's interesting is that the more of us that push for these, I guess the more of us that push ourselves into the industry, and the more we kind of bring our own kind of values with us, I feel like the industry itself, and it's quite a big statement, but I feel like the industry itself can almost change, right? The reason I say that is because you look at, for example, I remember when I was young, I was reading a review about one of Spielberg's films, and the guy jokingly referred to, he goes, "This is the director who never have sex scenes in his films, one of the only directors." But it's true, one of the greatest directors, and he broke the norm by refusing to have these kind of scenes in his film. And I think that when you have when these kind of conversations around art become like, hey, we're gonna show a love story, But unlike every other film, we're not going to show nudity in this film. Unlike every other film, we're not going to show we're not going to use essentially the actress's body to sell our film, right? Which is what most films unfortunately do. So I think those values of ours that are almost universal can bleed into the industry, which I think is very, very interesting.
So 2 things. On your point, I mean, if we look at the industries that our parents come from, right? Bollywood, and then for me, it's growing up. We always watched Egyptian films. Cairo was our Bollywood, right? But that's absent, right? The nudity and those scenes. Right. That's not a part of. You can still tell rich stories, love stories, but you don't necessarily need to have those scenes. And it's decades. It's been done for decades, right? Both in Bollywood and in Egypt and Turkey now. I don't know about you guys, but like the Turkish soap operas are like huge with us.
I've heard a lot of good things. Yeah.
So it's been done. It's not like it cannot be done and that it's not possible. But I don't have much hope in like Hollywood changing, but I do think if we continue to make our own content, we can create our own, microcosm of an industry. And, there have been initiatives to, there's the International Muslim Film Festival, and then there's now a there's an International Muslim Film Festival, and then I think there's another one. But having those is allowing us to take our films and showcase them. And I think if we continue to create our own content, then we can use our own talent and we can push our own boundaries, right? And we can evolve as a community in that space, and not necessarily hope and rely on an industry that has villainized us for over 100 years to change for us, right? I have little hope.
Very, very interesting that you said that you don't have hope in Hollywood. I kind of felt that 2-3 years ago when I started, when I took being on set and started learning, like, okay, this is how you screenwrite, start screenwriting. Okay, this is kind of how you produce, start producing. Okay, get yourself a crew. Because I was kind of, my mind was already there. Like, I don't have hope for this industry, so I'm gonna start making my own content. But even with that comes a lot of struggles, like getting together with the crew, funding, like marketing. So we're literally building a stage like from the ground up, and it's very difficult from that perspective. And I looked into your services and how you can provide for Muslim talent as well. How do you feel about, or do you know any places where Muslim filmmakers can go for things like funding or camera work or stuff like that? Because I maybe I missed it on this website, but I didn't catch on to that.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought that up, because actually I want to talk about it. What I did was I created Muslim-American Casting because I just didn't feel like I had a home. I didn't have a space. I didn't feel like there was anyone that understood my hesitations, right? My creative hesitations. And, I spoke with different community members, and, I was told no one is helping Muslim talent right now. Nobody is developing Muslim talent. And they told me to just go ahead, right? And I took that and I really ran with it, because what I have done is I've created a database of hundreds of Muslim actors. And they are from all over the Muslim community, because I've tried really, really, really hard to diversify the talent. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the demographic data of U.S. Muslims, 25% are Black Muslims, 25% are South Asian Muslims, 25% are Arab Muslims, and then the other 25%, the last 25%, are a mixture of Persians, converts, Turkish, Afghans, like it's just completely, we're very, very diverse. So I wanted my database to reflect that. And so I just don't want there to be the excuse that they couldn't find the right talent. I never want that to be the excuse. So now I have this database of not only actors, but writers, and a couple of directors and a couple of producers. So these are hopefully folks that can feel like they have a space that, I'm not a talent agency, but when I do put out castings, I'm very mindful of those castings, and I'm not going to send them something that perpetuates a stereotype. I'm not going to send them something that is, just completely outlandish, or looking to just check a box. That's not what I do. So, my goal is to really build this community, and then hopefully we can grow into something more down the road. And I was thinking about a talent incubator where we bring talent together and they train together. There's also, I've had different ideas around working with some of our UK counterparts. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the British Film Institute, but they recently, okay, good. They recently hired on a charity, a Muslim charity that is building a hub for Muslim creators like yourselves, actors, directors, writers, to come together, share resources, find financiers. It's essentially going to be a one-stop shop for Muslim creators. And I, as just a casting agency, I don't have the capacity to do that, but I think that could be a great model for us. Let's see how they do. Let's take their lessons learned, and and hopefully we can build something similar.
It's funny because I'm actually on a WhatsApp group with a bunch of British Muslim filmmakers, and I remember someone mentioned, I think the guy who I completely forgot. I think the guy who runs it, or someone mentioned, "Hey, I've just started this initiative," and the first thing I said was, "Hey, check out these guys as well, Muslim American casting," because it reminded me so much of the work that you're doing, and I think that was really really inspiring, I guess, to see how when you push something forward, someone on the other side of the world can kind of push forward the same kind of ideas, and we all work towards, I guess, a collective goal. One of the things which I read, which I believe you guys do, is you also act as advisors to productions. And how does that work exactly, and what's your goal there?
So what I found is there's productions that want to include Muslim talent, but they're hesitant and they aren't sure what to do. And so I'll give you an example. I casted for a major beauty brand, and inshallah it'll come out soon, and I'm very excited about it, that campaign. But they hired my talent, and they had questions around what to do with her on set, right? So she's hijabi, and so I actually was very happy that they had these questions and actually approached me about the questions. So I took that and I developed a toolkit. And the toolkit are some do's and don'ts, right? So if you do, for example, you hire a hijabi woman to be in your production, here are some do's and don'ts. For example, she needs to have some space to maintain modesty, and it doesn't need to be her own separate room, but it can be just, a curtain somewhere where she can maintain modesty if she needs to change, right? It would be preferable to have a female hair and makeup person for her. It would be preferable to have a photographer that's also female, but, we understand limitations there. But, and then, some don'ts are, don't ever ask her to take off her hijab, because that's like a piece of her body, essentially. Like, you don't ask at any point for her to take it off. because we've seen in a lot of shows where, you know, the hijabi will walk in and then rip it off at some point, or she'll get frustrated and rip it off. And like, I'm tired of that.
Yeah,
like, it's
we
old.
had so many discussions about that.
It's
we had
so
many
old.
discussions about that. Yeah.
So, you know, that's why I created the toolkit. That's just one of them. I created another toolkit for productions that are going to film in or about specifically Middle Eastern countries, just some do's and don'ts, right? Like, so don't conduct business on a Friday because everything's going to be closed. You're going to be completely out of luck, right? You know, just hospitality, like some common like hospitality things, like always drink the tea. Doesn't matter how many times they offer it to you, just drink the tea.
Shake it when you return it as well.
Yeah. You know, just some common just do's and don'ts. Because what I found is there's some interest, but there's questions, and we as community members cannot expect these people to know the answers about our community. And you know, honestly, and this goes for every underrepresented community, right? Like the differently abled community, the Native American community. Every community is different. We can't expect everyone to know everything about everyone, but I'd like to be a resource. I'd like to be a starting point. And so that's why I felt it was necessary to kind of have a consulting side. It's not my favorite thing, but I will definitely offer up my advice, much to like my parents' dismay.
Well, what are you doing to cultivate? I think you kind of mentioned this briefly earlier, but what are you doing to cultivate Muslim talent, like from, I guess, the beginning? Because I feel like we're in this new generation. I don't want to say we're all too old now, but we're in this kind of new. You know, I feel like the younger generation didn't grow up, I guess, in the same way that we did, where getting into entertainment or media was a scary and new thing that would give our parents heart attacks, right? I feel like now, TikTok, yeah. in this
Everybody's doing TikTok.
In this TikTok era, everyone wants to express themselves, be it via acting, be it via media or whatever. That I feel like there's so many screenwriters, so many actors, so many filmmakers in our community that are just ready to be, ready to shoot for the stars. So what are you doing to help cultivate these talents in our communities?
So, okay, many things, but so you know, I'll just name off a few. So, for example, I had a commercial talent agent approach me wanting Muslim talent. I approached my database and I said, who needs commercial representation in LA? And I had folks submit to me, you know, to my shock, I mean, I didn't really have high expectations, but to my shock, some of the talent actually have signed with a commercial talent agent. Nice. So, you know, we're getting people representation. I have a writer who's put together a series, and I have some literary agents' contact information, and I'm actually putting her in contact with a literary agent. So the way you really get things done in Hollywood is, unfortunately, the old school way, which is through agents. So I'm trying to connect the dots, essentially, and bring Muslim talent to the forefront of some of these agents that just have no idea what's going on or how to approach our community. So there's that. Then there's folks that have approached me behind the scenes who say, hey, I'm in med school, but I've always wanted to do this. How do I do this? Yeah. So I caution them, like, do not drop out of med school. I do not need your parents coming after me. Like, don't do it.
They need that element of danger.
Right. Stay in med school, for God's sake. So I tell them, I have several degrees and none of them are in theater. I've gone to theater school. I've taken acting classes, but I think you can do both. I don't recommend it, but you can. And so I'm telling some of these younger folks who don't really know what they want to do to really take the time to focus on, academically, if there's something that interests them, and then pursue it on the side. You can always take acting classes. Now, if you want to do theater, that's a different beast. And theater, I do recommend you actually attend a drama school for. But if you just want to do, shows on the side, there are acting studios all over the place that you can take. So I have an FAQ section on my website that I actually have different links to slide decks, pitch decks, like how to make a slide deck, how to make a pitch deck, screenwriting classes you can take, some acting. I think there's like an acting link. So I've essentially said, if this is an area that you're interested in, here are some resources for you to look into. And then, if you're still interested in it, you can build a portfolio and we can talk about it. Get headshots and links and all that fun stuff. But really, for me, it's I want to make sure that the talent that's out there feels that they have a space, that they can come to me, that we are going to try to get them into the mainstream. But I really do encourage a lot of the youth to make their own content, because the thing is, we are so creative. We are intensely, immensely, like creative. I was going to say emotional, but we are a very, very creative community, and it's true. And everybody seems to take out that, to display that on social media, because I think they never thought that pursuing acting or pursuing comedy or pursuing the traditional routes were a safe space for them. So especially, I know a lot of Muslim women who never in a million years thought that acting or Hollywood or stand-up could be something for them. So they just took to social media and have become incredible social media personalities. And so, and I tell a lot of folks this, that, you might think that you don't see Muslim talent, or you don't see Muslim creatives, but there are so many out there, and they've just never felt comfortable pursuing Hollywood because it was never a safe space for us. So they're out there, they're just creating their own content in a way that they feel comfortable and where they can own it themselves and they can own their own narrative. And so, I would love to take some of those, especially the women, and bring them into some sort of incubator and work with them, because I think there's so much there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
She answered everything that I had, honestly. I was gonna, yeah.
I'll throw in this question. I think we've spoken about this a million times in the podcast, and I know it's funny because it's such an important conversation, but at the same time, I think we're so tired of hearing it, but it is an important one. So I'll ask you, why do you think, in your opinion, correct representation of Muslims in film is so important?
Because the reality is, what you see on screen is what you perceive the world to be, and how then you socially interact with that perceived world. And what I mean by that is, if you only see negative representation of any community, right, your interaction with that community is going to be negative from a social perspective. And therefore, your political interaction with that community is going to be negative. And what I mean by that, when you only see Muslims playing these roles, these awful roles, and a Muslim ban rolls out from the White House, what is your support for that going to be? How is that going to be reflected? Well, if you only have this one-dimensional view, you're only going to support punitive public policies. So it's so important. It's so important to make these individuals more nuanced. And again, I'm not saying to make them perfect, but make them more nuanced and make them more than a one-dimensional, I hate to say it, but making them more than the terrorists, making them more than the negative stereotype, because that way we become human. And when you do see that these surveillance programs that come out that do mass surveillance on the brown community, you can say, wait a second, I don't support that. I don't believe in that. And I'm not going to vote for these people that continue to perpetuate these policies. So that's really my philosophy, I guess.
It's interesting that you say that. And I think, it's funny because I think all of us growing up, it sounds so funny to look back at this time, and I guess in many ways things have changed. I guess maybe they're just different, but we'd grow up not seeing Muslims on TV, and whenever we saw a Muslim on TV or film, it would be a terrorist. We're like, oh, that's just how it is. We'd laugh at it. I was like, oh, yeah, Hollywood's doing it again. It's fine. We just kind of live with it. And I think for me, I spoke about this on the podcast before. There's something really dear to me, honestly, is that the first time I'll never forget this moment. The first time when I saw the cast photo of Rogue One. And then basically had all these incredibly, mystical characters, and sitting there was a British, Pakistani, Muslim in the form of Riz Ahmed. And I was like, I just sat back and I was like, wow, I've really internalized, as someone who grew up, I guess not everyone's like this, but as someone who grew up religiously on film, as I've really internalized a lot of self-hate. Because I never imagined that anyone who looked like me or believed what I could be in Star Wars, could be in in Hollywood or be in a film and not be there for a Muslim or even forget terrorists or even a Muslim role. So I think that for me that's why representation is so important, because it made me realize this whole time. And it's getting pretty deep, but this whole time you haven't believed in yourself.
Hey man, this is the podcast.
This is the podcast. We'll get deep.
Get deep.
We're getting deep.
It made me realize, we're getting deep. It made me realize your whole life you haven't believed in yourself.
Yeah.
And the reason you haven't believed in yourself is because you grew up not being told that you are capable of greatness, that you are capable of being in a galaxy far, far away, and you are essentially you need to love yourself and not hate yourself. And I think what was interesting is that it was a shock to me, and it kind of shocked me because it was so subconscious that I didn't even know it was there. It was so it wasn't like I was like, oh, waking up every day I hate myself and I'm not capable of greatness. It was like when I saw that I was like, wow, this whole time you didn't believe in yourself. Yeah, and that's when I realized how important representation was for me anyway, personally.
100%. Like I was thinking about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? And I loved that movie. I loved that. I would watch it over and over and over. Like, it was gruesome and it was awful. It was horrible. Like, there's these, he cuts into the snakes and these baby, like, spoiler alert to anyone who's never watched it.
I haven't seen it, but it's been 25 years. I guess I can
Oh my God. Like, and and this guy comes out and, like, takes out this other guy's heart. And, like, it's just insane, right? But I loved it because, especially growing up where I grew up, there was nothing brown, right? There was nothing like, and that wasn't necessarily Muslim representation, but just like seeing anything brown was like, oh, it was exciting, right? It was just, we were just excited to be part of the narrative. And then of course with Aladdin too, the same thing with Aladdin. It was just like exciting, even though it was completely wrong. I mean, it's this Persian fable that's been Arabized, and then there's the Arab, I mean, then it takes place in like this fictional Taj Mahal. It just doesn't make any sense. Right? But it was just so exciting to hear the names, like to hear Alauddin, to hear Jafar, to hear like these names that you've heard before, but no one else around you has ever heard. And you're just so excited that you know something that they don't know, that you'll be a part of it. You just want to be a part of it. And then when you get older, and you look back and you realize what you were a part of and what you were made to think was representative of you. They were just throwing, some bones at you, like some sticks at you. And the thing with Aladdin is, and I know we were going deep. I'm like, I'm going to bring us back. In the beginning of the movie Aladdin, there were these song lyrics. Do you guys know the song lyrics that I'm talking?
Kind of. It's like in the back of my head somewhere.
Are you gonna sing it for us?
There were these song lyrics about like if you steal, they'll chop off your hand, like something along those lines. And this was in a Disney movie, and it was the opening to a Disney movie, right? And it wasn't until some Arab Americans took a stance and said, absolutely not. We're just not going to let you. We've let you do so much, but we're not going to let you do this. And you need to remove these lyrics because that is just unbelievable. And it took a lot of lobbying, but they eventually did remove the lyrics. But, you can look it up and you can see. And, it's just, it's crazy because as a child, I didn't even notice, right? I didn't notice half of the innuendo that was being made, the deprecation of the woman, the hypersexualization of Jasmine, just the every stereotype you can possibly imagine, right? But I was just so excited to be a part of it that I didn't even care. So I think now as an adult, I look back and cringe, but that's where we were. And there was a study that was done is Muslims like 100 years in Hollywood, something along those lines. Right. And we've been misrepresented for 100 years. And it started with silent film. One of the first silent films that we were misrepresented came out in 1921. It was called The Sheikh. 100 years. It's going to take us a long time to undo that. And Hollywood's opening up a little bit. But I think it's going to be a combination of creating our own content, developing the talent, so developing the actors, developing the writers, developing the showrunners, the directors, and then creating pipelines for them to actually make their way up and through. And also the executives. Like you talked about accountants. We need accountants, we need entertainment lawyers, we need them on the executive side because that's where the shows get bought. That's where the big decisions are made. So if you are a Muslim lawyer, become an entertainment lawyer, become an entertainment accountant. Like we need all of those folks on the business side as well because there's so much that can be done.
That's me, man.
Finance man.
Yes.
Get you. What is your, I guess just winding down, I know it's a very heavy question, but what is your 10-year vision for Muslim American casting? Where do you want to see it go?
I have on my website that I want to get to a point where we don't need to exist, right? Like Muslim talent shouldn't exist. And what I mean by that is we should feel safe. We should feel a space. We should the industry should be so decentralized and diverse that we can find our own niches, right? We can create within our own comfort levels. And so 10 years down the road, I would love for us to, instead of becoming Muslim American casting, and we call ourselves MAC, M-A-C, I said on my website that I would like us to just be many and all casting. Right? It should be so commonplace that underrepresented communities are represented that you don't need to have specialty casting agencies or specialty whatever, that we just become a part of the narrative. And it should not be about our skin color or our religion or even the way we practice our religion, right? If I wear hijab or I don't wear hijab, if I pray or I don't pray, right? It shouldn't be about the dogma either. So that's really, where I'd love to go. Now, if I'm manifesting, if I'm really manifesting,
do it. I believe in you. Go for it. No limits.
I literally had to listen to a podcast on what that actually meant because that's not something brown people.
I don't know what it means, by the way. I
don't understand it.
Manifesting is believing in something that happens, right?
I don't know. Don't ask me.
I don't know. it's been working. It's been working for me. I'll be honest with you. My definition is working, so I don't want to get the real definition.
We just make dua, like, right?
Basically, make dua, work hard, and head toward your goal.
But like, I would love to, create a hub where like Muslim talent can create like that one-stop shop, where Muslim talent can come and create and, become part of the mainstream. And inshallah, I'm in LA and, not in Northern Virginia and
Hollywood
walking the red carpet.
I didn't hear New York on that list.
No one wants to move to New York, bro. Have you seen the size of your apartment? For God's sake.
And I was going to say, and hopefully you move up to 600 square feet instead of 400 square feet.
Inshallah, make dua for me. I'm going to manifest that.
Serena, really appreciate your time, and we pray and hope for the best of your vision, and inshallah, hopefully it manifests itself into reality. Inshallah. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, follow your work, or get involved with Muslim American Casting, where do they go?
So our website is muslimamericancasting.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at Muslim Casting. And we post all of our castings on social media and through our listserv. So you stay tuned. If you are interested, you can kind of just see what we have that comes out. We're casting our first feature. I'm looking for some uncles and aunties who speak Urdu and can Bollywood dance and sing.
There you go.
Uncles and aunties. No.
These are uncles, like what, 45
She didn't say good-looking young men hunks. She said aunties and uncles, bro. It's different.
We need them to do a little dance number. So if they sing and dance, that would be great. And we've casted some shorts and some ads. So stay tuned, and we'll see what comes out.
I want to see it. Serena, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Many thanks to Serena for that wonderfully inspiring conversation. Wish you nothing but success in all that you do. Before we leave you, just another reminder to subscribe to us on all platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and on YouTube. We release a new episode every Sunday and have some fantastic guests lined up, so do stay tuned, inshallah, and inshallah we'll see you again next week. Thank you for joining us here over at 786 Boulevard.